Hi there, this is Midul with Honest Labs, and I work with business leaders and application teams to help them build, adopt, and implement AI systems that are secure by design and production ready. I'm on a mission right now to make security front of mind and a centerpiece in everything that we do in our professional and personal lives. And so with that in mind, today I want to discuss a nuanced use case around the use of short URLs. Now, so this is where we might have a really long web address or a URL that points to either a form that needs to be completed by a customer or an employee with sensitive information. It could be internal teams sharing links to dashboards or internal policies, right? And where we need a way of sharing the long URL in a user-friendly manner. Hence, we use services like short URL and others to basically give us a shorter URL, which is easier to share. Now, at face value, that sounds like a fairly simple thing to do, but I want to talk about some of the risk factors associated with that action when you're leveraging especially third parties to do that, and how you can mitigate that by doing that conversion of that translation by yourself. It can also become a bit of a branding exercise for you, but more importantly, gives you the safety and the security that you need to ensure that your information is not leaving your walls. Okay, so with that in mind, let me actually show you what I mean. And so let's take an example here. We've got a URL that marketing team would like to send out to a customer to source some feedback. And so this is for a form that the customer needs to complete. And if we look at the long URL that we're trying to make short, generally towards the end of the URL, here you can see what we refer to as query parameters. And so this is where, certain sensitive information can be passed as part of the URL to basically give you access to that form. So in this instance, we're using the customer's email address and their password to actually open up that form. So part of the information is already pre-filled and they can actually go ahead and complete the form. Now, again, innocent looking action, but what that means is now, because we're using a third-party provider that we may or may not know where they're based, we're essentially sending this sensitive information, which will most probably be recorded into a database somewhere, but then also be logged. And what that means is now your data is in hands of third parties that you can't really trust, right? And you've lost control of that information. And there have been real life attacks where such URLs or such services have either been put out there maliciously, or have been exploited for malicious purposes in phishing attacks, in spoofing attacks, and things like that. So how can we mitigate that? Now, I am a bit of a fan of Cloudflare. I think they're a fantastic provider. I use a lot of their services, and a lot of their services are accessible freely for most people out there. So I'm going to be using Cloudflare as an example. This can be done with another service as well. And so what we're going to be using essentially is creating a DNS record, which is like the name pointing, so which is where we're going to take a short URL and then we're going to point that to a long URL, and we're going to take complete control of the process. The reason this becomes even more important is generally when we're using this as human beings and humans are doing this, you might be able to look at the URL and identify that sensitive information. But as we start to leverage and use AI more and more, you will see where chatbots are interacting with your customers and collecting sensitive information. They might be using services like this to create a short URL to send out to your clients and suddenly putting sensitive information in harm's way, right? So that's why it becomes critical to make sure that that process is completely controlled, and you can do that very easily. So like I said, I'm going to be using Cloudflare here. In fact, I've actually gone ahead and written up a Python script here that allows me to do just that. And so I've tied a front end to it to basically make it easier for us to, bear with me, to visualize the issue, because as human beings we're a lot more receptive if we can actually see it happening. So I've just given it some credentials that I need to access my Cloudflare account, and what I've done is, and like I said, you're getting security with it, but most importantly, you're also getting a bit of a branding exercise. So I've gone ahead and registered a domain called hlabs.li. So it's a short domain that I wanted to use, and again, it also helps with the branding, and then I can now go ahead and actually use custom host names or custom tags. So generally, as we saw with the previous service, if I go back here, when I click short URL, they will actually decide what they want to put, and they add it as a directory in there, right? So if you use this service, you actually get a lot more control of the exercise. So let's say I want to call this web, and so I want my URL to look like web.hlabs.li. So if I click that and I want to go to my website here, and so I've given it a source and a destination, I'm going to go ahead and create that redirection rule. And in the backend, this is talking to my Cloudflare account, and created that for you. So as you can see, we've got that URL here, which we'll copy and I'll show you momentarily. And so if I go click here, that's the short URL we just created, and then that should take us to my website. And as we can see, that's quite quick, instantaneous, very secure. You've got complete control. If I go back into my account here and refresh it, you should see another rule being added right at the bottom here. And so there you go, web.hlabs.li, and that's a redirection rule added. So quite interesting, but it shows you that we need to start thinking secure, and simple actions like this can give you complete control back, especially when we're talking about adopting technologies that potentially take human out of the loop in certain scenarios for automation. So happy to share the repository so you can actually go play around with it. Let me know if anyone's interested, put a comment down below, and then be more than happy to share that repository with you. So thank you, hope this was helpful, and I will see you again.